Start early and finish early. So again, wow, this is really exciting. Thank you everyone for coming today. What I would like to show you today is a product that has been in the market for the past 3 years. We've been called like the best World Cup secret because we haven't done a lot of marketing about the product, but it seems to be running on dozens of organizations. And we wanted to share with you our story, why this product exists and why the company was born. And actually the story is not like a typical startup that you wake up one morning and come up with this Newton apple thinking that you're going to change the world. Actually, I'm going to tell you a different story. It started by us couple of people working at BI groups in large companies, insurance, banking, and telecom. And we found ourselves working our butt trying to understand the data flow. So, for example, how many of you came across a situation when a business user was calling the BI or the analyst or the data scientist saying, hey guys, I'm looking at the report, but the data doesn't make sense. Does that sound familiar to you guys?
Does anybody not sound?
All right. So I think that I came to the right place. Because after talking to really dozens of companies, it seems to be like this is not a joke, this is reality. As a matter of fact, we've been running into these kind of issues for the past couple of years, and we've seen no progress with the technology available to people to deal with that issue. I'm going to throw in another example, and I think that the guys from Irwin pointed that out. If you want to make a change in a business process, in a field, you want to recreate a new one, how can you know in advance what is going to be the impact of that change moving forward on the database tables and BI reports? Is that an easy task? Have you run into this kind of a use case before? Right. So I can tell you from our experience that we ended up spending sometimes days, weeks, and sometimes months in trying to figure out where the data flow is, or I'm going to quote the business guy, where the is the data. All right, because I want to be politically correct. So when we kind of suffered, because we were always bombarded, we were frustrated with the available technologies, and we were always in the defense mode kind of, because the business always right. They look at the data and they just kind of throw in a task. Hey, check out the data, it doesn't make sense. Or the two guys, marketing and sales, are looking at the same report and they get two different data sets. And then you need to explain that actually they did not look at the same report, even though the name of the report is the same. So how come the data is not accurate? And we were in the BI, as close to the business, trying to figure out how we can help our own life when dealing with these kind of issues. And these kind of issues are reporting issues, data mismatch, reporting issues on different reports used by different tools by different people, and they get two different data sets. Changes across the organization. As I think Donna said yesterday, business is changing, data is changing. If you want to create a new business process, what do? You want to consolidate two systems. And these are all use cases that we came across, and we also validated with so many others of our peers. And we've decided to approach the data flow or the data movement process through technology, not by human labor that is very, very cumbersome with many, many people, different stakeholders. And the name of the game that we were looking at is the metadata management. A lot has been said yesterday and today, and probably a lot is going to be said about the metadata, which metadata for us is as equally important as the data itself. As a matter of fact, we don't really care about the data because the data is a number, is an output. But if you don't give it a context, if this is not explainable to the business and to the BI, it doesn't make sense. So what we cared about is how can we find metadata, and throughout that, understand how we can help the business utilize the data that exists in their organization. So I think that what I would like to show in the next minute and 20 seconds is a video that we created with about 15 companies together As opposed to us being a marketing company thinking that we can tell the world what they need to do, we did the other way around. I don't know if you've seen Seinfeld, exactly the opposite. So we did exactly the opposite. We went to our customers and partners and said, what is the benefit of centralized metadata management that you want to tell your peers? And this is the video that we've created, and I want to show that to you.
To go in and manually... A new mission that requires metadata discovery has arrived for the BI group. With metadata scattered throughout so many different BI systems and the lack of visibility and control of metadata, this task is going to be really time-consuming. Many companies complain about the BI group having to go in and manually trace the data journey to locate all the metadata needed from within all the different systems, each with its own tool by a different vendor. This process is incredibly tedious, requires a ton of resources, and often leads to inaccurate results and decisions made based on wrong data. It doesn't have to be this way. Introducing Octopai, a metadata management tool that is literally as simple as a search engine. Octopai is the first cross-platform metadata search engine that automatically maps all your systems, centralizes all your metadata into one platform, and exposes the data journey in seconds. Finally, a cross-platform cloud-based product that delivers full clarity of the data journey. It enables you to discover and control your metadata and can be up and running within a day. Whether you have to make changes to a calculation, a table name, or a field, whether you need to find metadata or fix a report, whether you need to design a new business process or implement upgrades, Octopai saves businesses precious time to market and empowers BI professionals with automation. Octopai takes the guesswork out of metadata.
Great. So I think you got exactly what we're doing. And again, what we wanted to do is to help BI groups to enable the business to move faster. And the way we've done this, we've taken this topic called metadata and metadata management and tried to automate it. So what we have also seen, and you can see so many other reports, is that business intelligence, either the technical guys or even business guys, spend so much time. Actually, they waste so much time trying to identify, discover, understand, and govern metadata that we just thought maybe we can create a product that can automate that and be completely the opposite of the way people work today. So in a typical environment, what we've seen, and this exists in dozens of companies that we've been working with, and hundreds of which we also talk with, is that the data users are not really, or the data consumers are not communicating directly with the data sources. They actually create business processes that are supposed to stream the data in a certain way, in a certain manner, to the data warehouse in a different kind, and then they are being uploaded to the reporting tools, and then you have the UI to enable their data analyst and business science to consume data in a certain way. But when there's a reporting issues, you have to track the entire movement of the data from the data source throughout the different modifications, transformations, and the different tools that participate in the data movement process. And it's not that easy because not everybody within the BI group talk between themselves. Actually, sometimes they're using different vendors' tools, which has their own way of managing the data movement process. So what we said, instead of many people in the BI and the business try to work with many different silo-based products that are looking at metadata from different vendor systems that participate in the different stages of the data movement process, let's do exactly the opposite. So we're going to be many people working with one product. They will analyze, gather, discover, modelize, index the metadata from every system that we have in the organization. And why? Because then we can make our life better. We can have a common truth. We can have a common language between the support and operation to the business analysts to the developers. And we can help the business move faster when they need to understand data mismatch from one hand, or to design a new business process because the business keeps changing. And I want to show you kind of 3 use cases of which this product actually changed their lives. So this is what we do, all your metadata in one place. Seems like very, very easy, and yet underneath, under the hood, there's a lot of technology, and in some areas also machine learning that helps gather the metadata and understand it, even though it's coming from different systems. So when we go to an organization, we just ask them what kind of systems are you using. Some of them are using a variety of different vendors, as you can see here, and I guess you recognize all of them. And actually, some of them also have different systems that includes ETL data warehouse and reporting and analysis and big data and so on and so forth. And as what we've seen, the number of vendors who are managing the data is just growing. Why? Because the drivers that drive the market to consume more data, as far as we've seen, are three main things. One, big data. The amount of data, the variety of data is changing all the time. So you keep on adding more systems. The second thing is that IoT. We have projects with companies who are trying to figure out what is it that they can do or doing with the IoT data that they gather, in addition to the legacy data systems that they have. And the third is, a lot has been talked about it, what we call regulations. So GDPR is one. There's a lot of different CBSC 232. I don't know what it means to you guys. It means to me nothing, but I can tell you that in DACH, in Germany, Deutschland, Austria, and Switzerland, this is the way they manage the privacy of the data within this DACH region. And one of the elements there is to prove that you can track the data movement process, not in a project of a month or a day. You need to prove that within a couple of hours. So the common denominator of everything is, for our point of view, metadata, which for us is actually as equally important as the data itself. So what do? Exactly the opposite. Is that instead of looking at only one vendor's metadata, we are collecting all the metadata into one place, and then we analyze it for the business. The second thing is that we're cloud. So as opposed to maybe some of you or most of you are still in the desktop application or the legacy systems as we see that are on-prem, what we do, we just analyze the entire system. Think of a blender like an X-ray, throw everything to Octopai, and what we will do, we will help you discover metadata or the data journey in 5 seconds. And if the internet is slow, it's probably going to be 7 seconds. But that's the top. And we're going to show you a use case. So this is just a picture of, as you know, as data lineage. This is a report, and when the data was mismatched or required by the business, they were asking us to trace how the data reached that report. After all the manipulation and modification transformations. So that was an external table, 4 database tables from different systems, Oracle and SQL Server, and about dozens of ETL processes from Informatica, SSIS, and DataStage. And some of them actually were written, I think, in PLSQL, something like that. To try to reach that picture, not in 7 seconds, it's about two weeks of work. And this is a true case study. So let's go through some use cases. This is a telecom company. What they wanted to do is to deal with a certain area of problems that had to do with reporting issues. They call it production and ongoing issues about reporting. And they had about 20 to 40 incidents on a weekly basis, which is something that we've seen with a lot of customers. So tickets are being opened. They went to the BI. Username X is looking at a report named Y, and he thinks that he would expect to see different data sets. Familiar, right? Now we're in the BI, need to understand if the pipes are working well, if the data flow actually works okay, and maybe the business user was not happy with the result, but that's the result. So they took them about 18 hours to try, on average, to break down the structure of the report from the report through its different columns and fields. How is that being generated on the reporting system? Which exact named database tables are consisting that data that is being presented on those reports, and which exact named ETL process are involved in streaming the data to those tables that are then being projected on the report. And this is kind of a block workflow of how they were working. And we've been able to reduce that to less than an hour. Let me show you what they're done. So in this case, let's bring the application for a second, and I hope that the internet is going to be sufficient. So what you're seeing here, this is a typical, this is a demo that we've created. It represents about 11,000 ETL processes that we have analyzed that inject data or stream data to about 66,000 tables that are being consumed by 11,500 reports. The metadata that we've analyzed is coming from a whole bunch of systems, some of the names that you've seen before, ETL systems of different vendors, database, SSAS, and reporting system of different kind, actually regardless to what systems you have in your organization. So, who wants to be a business user? You. All right. So, what's your name?
Rick.
Rick. So he was calling or opening a ticket about a report called Internet Cutoff Netbox. Now, are you familiar with that report? Me neither. All right. So he's claiming that the data there is wrong, or he would expect to see something else. What I want to do is to try to find how the data reached to that report from the data source, through the ETL, through the database, and in the reporting system, and then break down the reporting from its physical layer, semantic layer, and presentation layer. Now, bear in mind that in some countries, they call the reports in different names in different languages. And within the reporting system, they have it sometimes in English. So where you have a report called Internet Cutoff Netbox, it can be named differently in the physical layer. So you need to understand the translation of those names. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask Octopai to find that report for me without even knowing what is the reporting system that he's using. And I want to understand how that data reached to that report. So I'm going to click search. And what happens, again, since all the metadata has been analyzed already by Octopai, we narrow down the areas of which the word internet actually influences. Now, we're going to focus on the report for a second, even though if you just put your mouse here, you could see everything that relates to the word reporting, as well as drilling in to the ETL processes and drill in the ETL process and see the map itself without even the need to go to the ETL system that you're probably not aware of how to use that. So here's the report that the business user was asking about. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to wait 5 or 7 seconds, depends see what kind of internet we have here. Yeah, we have a fast internet. What you see here is that the Internet Cutoff Netbox report, this is taken from the main catalog, and this is a different language. This is Hebrew. We're coming from Israel. The data reached here by consuming data from these two named exact database tables. That data reached to those tables via 4 ETL processes. Now, the interesting part is that these top 3 are from data stage, and this one is from Informatica. So from the user point of view, we kind of flatten, we unify the entire BI infrastructure. So the only thing they need to do is just Googleize the metadata. Yes, please.
Can your ETL processes include database sources?
The answer is yes. Yeah, not just the standard tools, vendors tools that you have. Actually, that's a very good question, because I think 30 to 40% of the ETL processes that we analyzed are not, due to the fact that you're using the well-known vendors tool, PLSQL, SQL.
Yeah, if I can add, it can be also files, PLSQL files. That also it's ETL.
Also views?
Also views, yeah, of course.
Right.
I have a question. When you had your picture, I was going to save my question till the end, but since we get on this real quick. In your picture, you had Octopai getting in your ETL and your reporting. It did connect to the database of the source, and I thought that was unusual. What does that indicate? The fact that Octopai wasn't plugging into your data sources?
You mean on the left-hand side?
That's right.
Yeah, the data.
Octopai didn't tie into them. I thought that was strange.
The data sources actually represent the different applications that an organization uses. It can be CRM, ERP, PLM, finance, HR. But from what we've seen, the companies that we work with, they take the data from these sources and flow them in through the ETL.
Sure. Right.
Okay, and we analyze that process from the ETL to the reporting.
How do you baseline your sources, though, where everything starts from? How does that get connected into the...
How do we pull the metadata?
Sure.
So the easiest way to explain it is that we have extractors per vendor. That what you do, you just run this on the system that you want Octopai to analyze for you. We actually communicate with the metadata repository, and then we extract the metadata on its raw basis. We create a file, and then the different files of the different BI systems are being uploaded to Octopai. Then we do our analysis. We understand the cross connections, the dependencies, the indexing of each and every item there.
No, I understand that, but I guess my question is your tool able to plug into those source databases where the data is being created, curated, developed? Because that line wasn't on your picture.
Mm-hmm. If I can answer this, the data sources can be application, it can be a lot of various things. If these sources go to by the ETL tools of the organization, it can be any ETL tools. Octopai mapped it as a source. So you can, even if it's a application file, you can search it in okay?
I'm with you now. You're picking up only the data you're actually using, essentially. And
right.
That starting metadata is there at that initial.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I just want to run. Then, by the way, if you have additional questions, just come to our booth because we're going to be there, so we can show you a more thorough demo.
If your data sources is in Octopai, Octopai know how to connect it. For example, Oracle SQL Server and a lot of things. You can map it also to Octopai. But if it's application that you are, yeah, okay,
right.
Okay.
So the last thing I wanted to show you on this example is that in some cases, when you find, for example, that the source of the problem of the report actually is true, and there's some issues with the ETL process, the next question that pops into your mind is that, well, the business user was right due to the fact that something had been modified or changed or broken in that ETL process. So are there any other implication of that ETL process, not only in that report? So now you're thinking about, I have 11,500 reports, which are the ones that are impacted by that specific ETL process? And here, the only thing you need to do is just click on the lineage here, and the data lineage now is the other way around. You go from the ETL to the different implications of the database and to all these reports that are impacted by that specific ETL. Now, the good news about it is that it may be that some of the business users complain about this report already, and you're just wasting a huge amount of time trying to root cause what could be the possible of the problem, which I already found. The bad news is that it may be that some of the reports have not been picked up by the business users. They actually think that the data is accurate, and they're taking wrong decisions. And from my point of view, we have the control, finally, to impact those business users ahead of time. We can tell them before they even look at the report, hey guys, take a break for a second, we're fixing something so the data is going to be accurate so you can take the right decisions. And not be on the defense mode, be on the attack mode. And which, by the way, we're going to be presenting in the booth there, so you're very welcome to ask more deeper questions. So this is an insurance company, typical use case that we've seen with so many other clients. They wanted to do a cross-organizational change, and that change was really, really easy to understand. Due to audits, they wanted to change the way they calculate the amount of employees in the organization from 30 days to 1 day. So the first thing that they did, they tried to identify all the reports that show the number of employees. Once they found all the reports, they just changed from 30 days to 1 day. And guess what? Data was still the same. So now they go back and say, oh, okay, so the formula that is part of this calculation needs to be edited. So what's the next question? Where is this formula? All right? So with Octopai, what we've done, we helped them cut the 8-month project to only 3 weeks. And why? Because again, think that all the metadata that consists all the different fields and consts and calculations and formulas, whatever exists in your BI systems, have been indexed, modelized, and mapped by Octopai. So the only thing you need to do is just Google, put in the type of formula or things that are equivalent to that or similar to that. And we will kind of pop up all the areas in which that formula exists in the different systems, in their different submodules, and you can drill in all the way to the row line level and understand where to find and what could be the impact of that change on other stuff that relates to it. So in that case, we're going to be using the technical discovery here, and we're going to click here for something. Let's say product. And we're going to click search. And on the left-hand side, you can see a whole list of systems that exist in that specific customer. You can see different vendors on the different stages of the data movement process. All the green stuff that is being highlighted are areas within each system that we have found relation to the word product and how many times in each one of them that specific attribute exists. And when you want to drill in, you can click in each and every one of these buttons and go all the way to the different layers to try to understand what that change is going to impact and where the changes needs to be at. I just want to just complete that because my time is running out. So the last example I want to show you is this one. This is one of the top telecom integrators. They wanted to consolidate after about 6 months of discussions with that customer. They wanted to consolidate the data stage in Informatica. Now we can have a whole design of what needs to be done. In a nutshell, they were asking basic questions like which ETL processes within data stage they need to keep, and which are the ones that they need to delete, make them obsolete. And then, if there are some ETL processes that we do want to keep, what similarities those ETL processes are with the existing Informatica. And I'm happy to tell you they've been able to cut about 60% of that project by mapping and understanding the metadata, the dependencies. They compared reports with Octopai and compared ETL processes with Octopai to understand which ones to use, which ones to reuse. So all these kind of three, I would say, use cases are boiling down to the fact that the metadata is in one place. And the fact that it's in one place, we can get much more insights about that metadata, not only from operational point of view, but also from the ability to impact the business to understand what kind of data they have in the first place that they can use. I'm a heavy user of Salesforce.com. And the amount of fields that are called the same that we create all the time because we not necessarily know what they have. So I want to have the number of customers I've acquired in the past quarter, which campaign they came from, and how many of them actually paid. And the first thing you go when you create a report, you say account type. But then you get 6 different account types. Which one should I use? So the ability to understand metadata fields, how the data flows throughout the different process of that change is very, very helpful. And again, we started that product 3.5 years ago just to make our lives better. Since then, we saw 2 things. One, that it's not only our problem. We were kind of in a bubble saying, yeah, I want to get by 6 p.m. home, and we're going to live our life much better. And it seems to be that the more we talked about the problem, it seems to be not only our problem. The second thing that we have been validating is that the conceptual approach to solving the problem, meaning cross-platform centralization, being on the cloud, either our cloud, AWS, or Azure, or on the customer's private cloud. This is not on-prem 20 years ago in the desktop application. This is on-prem in the modern way, which is the private cloud of the application. So now you know how old I am. And the third thing, we want that product to be really cool to use. I don't know how many of you had experience with other products, which kind of legacy. We wanted to create exactly the opposite. Based on these three areas, cross-platform, up and running within a day based on the cloud, and nice to work, this is the product we've created. The product runs within, I think, dozens of companies in different industries: finance, insurance, utilities, banking, healthcare, gaming, and they all have two things aligned. One, they have BI groups that manage BI systems. And the second thing, we can cut their week to a minute. And it's a repetitive thing that happened due to a variety of use cases. So that's our message. Let's leave the manual aside. Let's make our life much better. And let's concentrate on the stuff that we want to do and leverage technology to do the work for us to as certain extent as possible. So with that said, I think that I met my deadline on time before they're going to throw me out. And we have a booth down there, so feel free to come by and ask any question if that interests you, if you want to get more. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.